Well, welcome to an early week edition of Digging In, presented by New Country Auto Group. And we're about momentarily to dig in. This is going to be fun. Anything but another manic Monday. Catchy tune. With three-time Stanley Cup champion, Olympic gold medalist, Patrick Sharpie Sharp. It's going to be so much fun because, boy, Sharpie over the years, when it mattered most, he dug in the deepest. And we're going to be able to pick his brain for an hour and change in gratitude to our tremendous sponsors. Our title sponsor, New Country Auto Group. I mean, you're talking about an elite automotive group. Dealerships in New York, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Florida. If you hit the lottery and you want a Ferrari, they're your huckleberry. Mercedes, Maserati, Ford, built Ford tough, and I'm just scratching this. So you want a smart car? They've got you covered. New Country Auto Group. And my dear friend Jared the Nooch Cantanucci, one of the owners of New Country, a Harvard grad. Prior to that, went to Shattuck St. Mary's. I was looking at his numbers. Oh, the guy affectionately named the Nooch. He had over 150 points one year at Shattuck. I mean, this is the same tremendous hockey program that's produced Sidney Crosby, Nathan McKinnon, Zach Parise. You're just talking about a few of the guys that have come through there, and the Nooch's numbers are comparable. People might show up at New Country with contracts in hand. So thank you to the great New Country Auto Group, www.newcountry.com. Our longtime sponsors, Allstate Fastener Corporation, one of the leading fastener distributors in the world, allstatefastener.com for an unlimited fastener product range. The Vintage Wine Company, VWCMIforMichigan.com. If you have any wholesale nectar of the gods needs in the state of Michigan, Vintage Wine has you covered. All inclusive. I mean, you want a cab, you want a Bordeaux, you want Sauvignon Blanc, nice and light, a Chardonnay. Boy, you want a Sauterne, anything you can deal with the Vintage Wine Company. And Data 443 software. I mean, these guys are super. And of course, I love the fact that they're great Caniacs. Boy, they had to be pumped. They had to be pumped with Saturday afternoon's big Game 1 win by the Hurricanes. But Data 443 software, I mean, for an old schooler like me that loves his boots, that should have been born in the Wild West, this is how I get with the times. Right on my phone. Any type of planning, playbook, you just look at your phone. You know where you have to be. Sports teams have used them. I know the Miami Dolphins and teams in major professional sports. So Data 443 software, data443.com to learn more about them. So thank you to our great sponsors. And without further ado, after my brother's catchy digging in tune, the great Tim Tracy, we will dig in with the great Patrick Sharp.
Lace them up, let's start the show. We're digging in with Tripp. 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 We're digging in with Tripp today, yeah.
Well, this will certainly make my day. Not to sound like Clint Eastwood, but to dig in with my dear friend, three-time Stanley Cup winner, clutch player, Olympic gold medalist, Patrick Sharp. And Sharpie, great to have you. I start every episode by asking, and a champion like you, particularly relevant, how do you define digging in?
Wow, that's a tough question out of the gate here. I'm always waiting for hey, what's the key to the Carolina Hurricanes winning the first round against the Rangers? But what's the key to digging in? Wow. Off the top of my head, I'm going to keep it hockey. And digging in is when you look across the locker room in the middle of a playoff game or whatever, a physical, emotional game, and you just know that, okay, I got that guy over there. That's going to go to battle. I know that guy's going to block that shot. Those guys are digging in. They're on my team. You get enough of those guys digging in, and you're going to win. So that's my answer for digging in.
We're going to get to your three cups as this thing unfolds. But when you think about that, looking across the room, any of those three cups, any particular moment that you remember vividly looking at a guy on the Hawks and you could just see he was digging?
Yeah, we've had our fair share of guys playing through injuries over the years. Every team can tell those stories, but probably the one that gets the most attention was 2010 conference finals against San Jose. Hawks are up 3-0 in the series. It's a close series, but we're up 3-0. Every game was like Antti Niemi was awesome for us. Bufflin was scoring game-winning goals. It was a really tight series, and we're on the power play. I'm playing the point with my partner, Duncan Keith. I go back and play defense back then, and we get switched on our sides for some reason. Normally, I would run the back door and get those nice passes from Kane and Taves and tap them in, and Dunks would be on his one-timer side. For whatever reason on this shift, we were switched. Patrick Marleau clears the puck down the ice on a penalty kill and takes out 12 of Duncan's teeth. And it wasn't like the teeth fell out. They were shattered. So he had to go to the bench, went to the locker room, and they were just picking like shards of broken teeth out of his face. Came back, a minute and a half left. He missed about 2.5 minutes of game time, comes back, sets up the game-winning goal. We win the series, and he's doing the interview with NBC with gauze in his mouth and blood pouring out of his mouth. And I think his quote, not word for word, but was something like, Pierre Maguire asked him a question about his teeth, and he says, I don't care how many fell out. You can take them all if it means we're going to win the Stanley Cup. And that was just like the moment right there was, I mean, come on, that's what playoff hockey is all about, isn't it?
You want to talk about digging in?
Wow. Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh, Sharpie. And
I always would tell him, Tripper, I'd always tell Dunks is the best thing that happened to him because his teeth weren't very nice anyway. And then he got 12 brand new teeth put in and they finally looked pretty good.
So you upgraded in the dental department, affectionately known as the Duke by one of your Stanley Cup winning teammates, Andrew Ladd. What made and makes Duncan Keith special and such a great competitor?
Special is a good word for Duncan Keith. For anyone that knows Duncan Keith, that's a great word to define him. Special. One of the funniest guys I played with. Thought he was a weirdo for the first 2 or 3 years I was his teammate, and then I finally started to understand the humor a little bit. Andrew Ladd calls him Duke. Don't hear that name too often, but when you said that name, I knew it was Laddie that you were talking about. They live close to each other in the off season, and they're tight. They're pretty close friends. Dunks is a guy that he'll play until he's 50 years old. He'll continue to be in good shape. He lives and breathes the game. He always wants to win. He wants to win the Norris Trophy and be the best player that he can be, but he's about putting Stanley Cup championships beside his name at this point and going to the Hall of Fame. He's done all he needs to do as a hockey player, but he still continues to grind it like he's a rookie and just getting started. So he's a fun guy to watch. Now that I'm done playing and I'm watching from the outside, I know how he's thinking because I played so many years with him, and you can put Kane and Taves and Seabrook in that same boat. It's fun to see those guys compete now, now that I'm watching from the outside.
Yeah, I want to get to, the exceptional work. It's just a fact, partner, the exceptional work that you're doing for NBC in the studio. Truly outstanding. But for everybody that's digging in with us, I think it's important to go back to the beginning and figure out how Patrick Sharp came to be. So, I think of you and your ties to Thunder Bay. Our last episode was digging in with the two Stalls, Mark and Jordan, ready to face each other in this first round, qualification round that's going on. You moved around a decent amount as a young kid, Manitoba, Calgary, Thunder Bay. Can you tell me about your childhood?
Yeah, I'd say I'm from Thunder Bay. That's my hometown. That's where I was raised, but I was born in Winnipeg. So sometimes the hockey card will say Winnipeg, Manitoba. I was born there. We lived there for 2 years of my life. Then we moved to Calgary, Alberta in the 80s, lived there from 83 until 1990, watched those Flames teams, which were pretty good in the 80s. They won their one Stanley Cup in 1989, but if it wasn't for the Oilers up north beating them in the playoffs all the time, who knows? The Flames were maybe the second best team in the league for a long time. And in 1990, moved to Thunder Bay, Ontario, and was probably the best thing that ever happened to my hockey career. My age group in Thunder Bay for hockey was awesome. We were a bad baseball team. We were no good in the summer. But for hockey season, we were awesome. We had great players on it, a bunch of pros, couple NHL players. Alex Auld, the goaltender, was our goalie. We had a guy named Taylor Pyatt who played many years in the National Hockey League, was on that team. A bunch more guys, but it was great for my development. We were playing all kinds of different tournaments and leagues and teams and great competition growing up. And what an awesome place to be in Thunder Bay. That's how I first met you actually, Tripp. You're at Eric's wedding, I believe. Could have been Jordan's. I can't remember, but they were saying good things about Tripp Tracy. And if the Stalls are saying good things about somebody, then it must be true, because I haven't heard too many people say anything bad about that Stall family. They're great people.
Yeah, it could go to Antarctica and you're not going to find anybody. It's absolute fact. What about a quick sidetrack question, Sharpie? What position did you play in baseball in the summertime in T-Bay?
I was a pitcher, and I loved center field. My dad would always – he was my coach, my dad, and he would always put me at shortstop, but I didn't like the ground balls. The fields that we played on in Thunder Bay, Ontario, I mean, we had like a 6 or 8 week season because it's so cold up there. Not too many friendly hops on the ground ball department, so I was constantly getting my head out of the way. I like the fly balls. I like to track them down in center field. Now, my dad was my pitching coach, and he'd come out when I was struggling on the mound, and he'd say, what do you say you start throwing some strikes? You know, that was his pep talk, talking to his son. You know, he'd say things like, do you want to come out of the game? You know, in that condescending voice. Baseball is my favorite sport growing up, probably because my dad was my coach. We never really took it too seriously. I was a decent ball player, but coming out of Thunder Bay, we're just having fun out there. Hockey was always a little more serious growing up, and at least that's how everybody took it where I was from. But those days on the baseball field with my dad were great memories.
Tell me about your parents. And, you know, your dad, I was talking to one of your agents, in preparing for this, Paul Krapelka, the great Rick Curran, who you work closely with, of course, Bobby Orr, raving about your parents. Can you just tell me about your parents shaping you? Because, you know, don't let this go to your head, but you're an extraordinarily good human being.
Oh, I appreciate that. Geez, I got to come on this show more often.
You got to dig in.
Yeah, I got to dig in. You're complimenting my broadcasting, all this stuff. I thank you for that.
Facts are the facts.
I got good parents. They care about their sons very much. They have an older brother named Chris who is 2 years older than me. So he was always close enough where he was just a little bit better than me at everything growing up. And he was like a good measuring stick where I could chase him down and try to be as good as my older brother. I think that helped my development. But my parents, you know, my dad doesn't really have a hockey background. He never grew up with the sport, doesn't really know the X's and O's. Now he knows it a lot better. But he does know his kids, and he knows body language, and he knows when I'm not trying, and he knows when I can be better, and he knows how to get the most out of his two sons. So from that standpoint, my dad was great at motivating me growing up. It was always fun to play hockey for me. I never burnt out. I never wanted to come off the ice and quit. I always wanted to get more and more and more hockey. My dad saw that, and he kind of encouraged it. And my relationship with my mom is great. And talking hockey with her, the only thing she'd ever tell me over the years was one word, and only one word. It was just believe. And that was like her big thing. And no matter what the situation, it was just believe in myself. Yeah. I think when I look back on my career, not to get too deep here, but I'm going to dig in a little bit. I was very high and low throughout my career. Score a lot of goals, be the best goal scorer in the league for a 2-3 week period, and then, you know, maybe settle down for 2 weeks and really struggle out there at times. I mean, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but that's how it felt at different times. And a lot of that time when I was struggling, I was just beating myself up inside my own head, you know, putting too much pressure on myself. And that simple word of just believe in yourself, believe it's all going to work out, trust the process, so to speak. That was like the main advice my mom gave me, and it helped me more times than not.
That's amazing. Were you, that is amazing. Know that, Sharpie. Were you always a forward, or, you know, in Thunder Bay, where you really started to have your hockey career take hold? Did you play any other positions?
Not really, always forward. It was important to play a lot of different positions. When I was younger, I played right wing and center growing up. You know, back then in the 90s, there wasn't a whole lot of right-handed shots playing left wing and vice versa, unless you were from Russia or European player, to be quite honest. It was very traditional Canadian hockey, up and down your wing, or else you play center. When I went to the University of Vermont, sometimes I'd play D on 4-on-4. Our coaches were, I don't know if they were forward thinking and thinking that that's a nice trend in the game, that you see those offensive defensemen. Whenever we'd get down in a 4-on-4, he would throw me back on the point, kind of like in a 3-forward type scenario. So got a little bit experience playing D. I played the D on the power play a lot growing up, but that's not really playing defense. So I was always just trying to score goals. Of course, making the league, I couldn't score goals, so I had to learn how to do something else. Kind of entered the league under Ken Hitchcock as a two-way center iceman, you know, not counted on to score a lot. And then it's kind of cool to see how the career evolves over the years. But I was always taught to play different positions, be versatile, because it's tough to graduate levels of hockey. And that was my main goal, was just getting to the next level every year.
Gosh, I'm going to go back to your decision to go to college and go to the UVM. I mean, Vermont, you look at the Marty St. Louis, the Tim Thomases, the Patrick Sharps. I mean, the production out of the Catamounts is unbelievable. But you just touched on something. Always wanted to ask you your perspective, it's the best perspective I could ever imagine with regards to scoring goals. I looked at your numbers, Thunder Bay Flyers, good. Numbers in Vermont, good. You win a Calder Cup with the Phantoms, American League affiliate of the Flyers. But then it just took hold and took off, 330-plus goal seasons with the Hawks. You scored when it mattered most. Usually it doesn't go like that. How did you develop the finish as time wore along in the greatest league on the planet?
I think I could always finish. That was one thing that I could do as a kid. I could always find ways to get open and be available. I played with a pretty good team. I mentioned my age group was awesome. I played with these two guys, Jamie Young and Taylor Pyatt were a line. I was the third guy. They were like 6 feet tall at age 14. They were men. They were physical. They were beasts out there. They were so good that I didn't really have to do much except get into the quiet areas and finish goals. So I kind of knew how to get offense that way. Hey, it goes back to my mom saying, believe in yourself. I never really felt that I could be a goal scorer at the NHL level. And it's funny, I'm talking to you right now with the Eric Stahl connection because age 21, I think Eric was, he came back to Thunder Bay. Canes had just won the cup, which is incredible. Stahl was a main piece of that. He had 100 points in the regular season, 45 goals. And I'm skating with him and I'm training with him. And I think I just scored 20 maybe. And I was happy with 20. And I'm looking at Eric and I'm thinking, God, that guy scored 45 goals. He had 100 points. Like, maybe I can be better. Maybe I can start scoring at the NHL level. Eric does it. I can keep up with him here in practice. Maybe I'll work on my shot. Maybe I'll do something else. Eric Stahl, who's way younger than I am, actually got me to another level just by seeing him and getting to be around him at that age. This was, 15 years ago. And then slowly but surely, my shot got better. I started believing in myself. I started scoring more goals. And I got to that next level. Playing with good players helps. Chicago got better teams around that time as well. But, I think it just comes down to that belief in yourself.
I want to piggyback off of your mom's, her teachings, just to believe. Because I know for me, Sharpie, one of the contributing factors that I just backed up one game in the league is I had doubt creep in. It happened somewhere in college. So if there's any young hockey parent, young boy or girl playing hockey, or even any sport, any facet of life, do you believe you can build that belief through repetition to make it a working part of your mind? I mean, what advice would you give to achieve truly, not just saying it, but believing it, believe?
Yeah, believe that you can do it. Sure. You got to have realistic expectations. I'm teaching my wife, Abby, how to golf right now. Can't believe it. We're in our end of our 30s. She's never swung a golf club in her entire life. I'm trying to get on the course every day. She's picked up the hobby late in life. We're in week 2 and I'm starting to learn, I'm saying the same things to her on the golf course as like my parents were saying to me on the way home or to a hockey rink. It's like, you got to believe in your ability, trust your athletic ability, know that you can get it done. Hey, don't look at the guy beside you and he's 6 feet tall and you're 5'5". You'll grow eventually. Just trust it. Believe in what you can do. That's what I find myself telling Abby when she's standing over the ball. Trust your swing, make contact, believe in your athletic ability. I think it applies to a lot of things in life. I'm doing TV for NBC, Tripp. I never thought I'd be doing that. Never been more nervous in my life. First time walking down the hallway with Keith Jones, got hair and makeup on. And we're going to talk about players I was just playing against and with. Now I'm supposed to be this broadcaster and this analyst. I was terrified. I just remember my mom saying, just believe in yourself. You can do this. You can handle it. It's just another interview. And I take that advice everywhere with me. So I don't want to keep saying it, but I think it applies in everything that you do, really.
Oh, I don't think you could say it enough. The great Abby Sharp, what's her best club in the bag right now?
We're working the 8-iron right now. She wants to hit the driver. She's pretty fit. She's strong. She likes to exercise, and she likes to hit the big driver. But we're getting the fundamentals down with that 8-iron. As soon as I see enough good 8-iron swings, we'll switch the club up a little bit. I'm a tough coach, but it's nice to see her have such a passion for like getting better at something, this late in life.
Mechanics are everything. Sharpie, so you're sitting there and you mentioned Eric Stahl. All 4 Stahls, went, to the OHL. I know you strongly considered going to the Ontario Hockey League and Peterborough in particular. Why ultimately did you choose college?
I was never a player like Eric Stahl. I was never the best guy on my team. the player that you could never see him play, just point at him and say, yeah, that guy's going to the NHL. We all knew Eric was great. Jordan, Mark, Jared was a great player at that age. You look at those guys and you say, those guys, let's get them to pro hockey as quick as we can. They're ready. I was a project. I was like years away. I was a really small, skinny kid. My birthday is December 27th. So there were some guys in our team born in January and February. That's a full year of like physical development at age 13, 14. That's a big deal, I think. I wasn't quite ready for OHL. Had I gone to Peterborough, which was the team that drafted me, I would have given up eligibility to play college hockey. I thought that, hey, at age 17, I'm a skinny, small kid. I'm a pretty good player, but my career could effectively be at a crossroads 2 years from now if things don't turn out well in major junior hockey. So I stayed home. I played local junior hockey. I went to college. I thought I have 4 years here to develop, get strong, and then take a crack at pro hockey. It worked out that I left Vermont after my second year and started playing pro right away. So it was just a decision I made at that point. But growing up in Ontario, I definitely wanted to play in the OHL. And I was jealous of guys like Eric Stahl. They got to come home with the half visor and the OHL logo on their jersey in the summer ice skate. I always wanted to do that at that age.
Well, by the way, quick note, all the greats were born in December. My December 27th friend. My sister was born on Christmas, me on the 20th.
Nice.
Sharpie, how did you happen to, because I'm sure there are a lot of schools after you, what were the ones that were maybe in the mix, and how did you happen to choose Vermont?
Vermont, I was lucky. Thunder Bay had a team. Thunder Bay, Ontario had a team in the USHL, which is a pretty good developmental junior hockey league. A lot of college scouts kind of comb that area for good players. Being from Canada kind of threw a wrinkle into things, going to U.S. college as far as scholarship money and how that stuff played out. I didn't get a lot of interest at age 17. My roommate, his name is Bryson Busnick. He went to University of Vermont a year before I did. And he kind of told the team, he's like, there's this kid back on this junior team that's only 17. He's a pretty good player. You might want to look at him. They came and watched us play in a playoff game, met with my dad and I afterwards, told us they'd love me to take me down on a visit. And right away, my dad was like, yeah, we're doing this. We like it. Went on the visit. Everybody was great. Facility was awesome. And we made the commitment basically right there. Like first offer, it was everything we needed. I had a friend at the school already. I could really thrive in this environment. And we committed. So I went back, played another full year of junior at home, lived with mom and dad at 18 years old. I think that was big too. Learn how to do laundry, get ready for going off to college life instead of the mad scramble of like, oh, where am I going to play next year? I already knew 18 months in advance I was going to Vermont so I could prepare for it. And then when I went to UVM, I didn't act like a freshman. I just walked in there like I owned the place, probably rubbed a few people the wrong way, but it helped me in my own individual career. I had confidence right away. And my roommate Buzz was a huge part of that. Having a friend and an ally at that age is pretty important.
Well, what's Buzz doing now? You want to talk about a phenomenal hockey name. That's Hall of Fame caliber.
Oh, yeah. He's the best. Bryson Busnick. His dad is Mike Busnick, who was a tough guy, actually, with the Whalers organization. He played some NHL games way back when. Buzz played a few games in the East Coast League, married a girl from South Carolina where he was playing in the area. And now a guy from Thunder Bay is living down in South Carolina, Charleston, South Carolina, making a good living for himself. So it's funny how the hockey world can take people everywhere.
What a good town Charleston is. As a matter of fact, I sent Eric Stahl to a fine restaurant called Hall's there. So I want to jump into a bunch of these things, Sharpie. Okay, so you played for Hitch. And then, of course, you win 3 cups with a coach in Joel Quenville, who only trails Scotty Bowman on the all-time wins list. In these playoffs or when you were winning, how would you define playing the right way?
Yeah, that's changing more and more with today's game. But historically speaking, and definitely throughout my career, playing the right way is you can be creative, you can be offensive, you can take chances to score and help your team that way, but you can't hurt your team. You can't play too high risk. You can't put your teammates in bad spots. You can't hang your guys out to dry. It means being above the puck sometimes in a defensive position. It means taking a hit to make a play. It means opening up your foot and blocking a one-time slap shot that you know is going to hurt, and it's going to be tough to put your skate on for the next few weeks, but you got to do it, because if you don't, we're going to see it on video that you got out of the way. I mean, those are all details of winning hockey teams. Now, the hockey that I've seen recently on this return to play, I don't know what to expect right away. I'm starting to think that those teams that just put such an emphasis on high-end talent and skill almost like we're playing summer hockey here. Let's just go out there and let the creativity flow and see what happens, but let's do it hard and let's do it fast. Those teams are having some success right now. How it remains to play out conference finals and finals, I still think we're going to see it more like what we saw in 2019, Boston, St. Louis, Stanley Cup final, those big, heavy, grinding type teams. It's nice to score. It's nice to play the power play, but you need everybody on the same page digging in. You guys had it in Carolina, like unbelievable season, right? It just seemed like all of a sudden you can go up and down that Stanley Cup roster that the Hurricanes have, and every single guy on the roster had a big moment at a key time, in the playoffs. Everybody contributed in some way. To me, that's the answer to the question.
So, whether it be, with Rod Brindamore here in Carolina or say Joel, do you, as a forward, whether you're a center or a winger, is it different for both? Do you create more offense occasionally by cheating? Or if you stay above the puck on the defensive side of the puck, however you want to say it, do you win on both fronts where you're better defensively and you create more in the attacking zone? What's your thought on that?
That's where you got to play hockey, Tripp. That's where you got to have the trust in your teammates. Like, I was one of those guys that would blow the zone 100%. I don't like the word cheating because I wouldn't just blow the zone if we had a rookie defenseman with the puck in the corner that I didn't know what he was going to do with it. I'd probably hang tight and play good D. But if Nick Jarmelson had the puck under pressure in a certain situation on the ice, I know the high flip to the neutral zone is coming. So I'm going to go track it down. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But more times than not, Nick's going to flip that thing to the neutral zone. I'm going to chase it down and I might get a scoring chance. So yeah, coaches or fans or someone will say, look at this guy cheating. He's looking for breakaways. To me, that's playing hockey. You know what I'm saying? So there's a fine line. You can tell who's cutting corners out there, who's looking for offense, who's trying to pad their stats, and who's just trying to play the game the right way. So that was one thing that we did in Chicago a lot, actually, was not to get too technical with the X's and O's, but if the puck is in the D zone, let's say Dougie Hamilton has it on the right side in his corner and he's under some pressure, instead of that board side winger helping out, we would just take off and just go. And that defenseman for the other team is standing at the blue line. I'm skating by, waiting for Dougie to shoot it in the neutral zone. And that defenseman's got to make a decision. Do I hold this blue line or do I come out? So sometimes you create space for your teammates by leaving the zone as well. So that's a good question. Every situation is different. Every player is different. There's probably some times where I went for a few skates that would rub my teammates or the coaches the wrong way too. But I don't know. That's the way I played. And I think my teammates accounted for that. Everybody plays the game differently. Play to your strengths. We had a lot of guys that would take chances on the offside of the puck, and it worked out more times than not.
As often we talk about defensemen gapping up and preventing speed to even materialize, just even doing that and flying the zone, you're preventing a tight gap from even having a chance. Right. I like that, Sharpie. What a deal for Chicago. No disrespect to the Flyers, but was there one point, early stages, or that jumps out at you in Chicago where you said, wow, this is a great spot for me? And when you said, we've got something special cooking here?
Yeah, probably when the young kids showed up, things started to change. Right before that, I got traded in December of 2005. Keith and Seabrook were on the team. No one else really stuck around after a couple of years. Marty Lapointe was the captain of the team, 2005 to 7-ish. And I think he played a big role in talking with management and the organization about how we need to rebuild this thing. We need to get a core group together. We got to get the right pieces in place and build it from the ground up. And Dunks, Siebes and I stuck around for the long haul. Shortly after that, Kane and Taves come in, and right away the talent level is like, okay, these guys can play. They're young. They're the future. Let's start building something here. Nick Jarmelson showed up as an 18-year-old kid, spent a lot of time with the group. We signed Marian Hossa, in 2009. That guy was like all-time. He was already almost a Hall of Famer without even winning a Stanley Cup. Now he comes to us after 2 Stanley Cup finals, that professional attitude. He started to feel our team was getting better. And then you've been going to the United Center a long time. You remember what it was like 2010 to 15. It was I think it's the best building in the league in those 5-year period. 22,000 fans. That anthem was rocking. Everybody wearing a red jersey in the crowd. Loud, intimidating place. You can come in there with the Canes and you're up 2-0 late in the third period. Kane's going to get the puck. He's going to make something happen. They're going to pull the goalie. And it's just like, here come the Hawks. it was just like an unbelievable run that I was able to be a part of. The team had, it was awesome to be a part of because we saw what it was like prior to that. And there was nobody really paying attention. The games weren't on television. Chicago wasn't really a good place to be for a long time. And now it's a top hockey place, and I'm lucky I could be a part of it.
You weren't just a part, you were a central component, in my opinion, partner. First thoughts of both John Toews and Patrick Kane, and when you said, woo, they're young, but the upside is really terrific.
Yeah, Taser right away. We're talking to him. He just, the way he looks, he's always in great shape. He's got this relaxed vibe to him now. He's like almost enlightened. He likes to know about your life. He asks weird questions that you don't get from normal people. His body is like, he looks like an athlete. He's got the broad shoulders, he's got the big legs. Right when I saw him, I was like, okay, I've heard a lot about this Toews kid. I saw him with Team Canada. Everything we hear, he's going to be the next captain. I'm a 27-year-old player that's been in the league for a while, and now I'm looking at a 20-year-old kid who's supposed to save the franchise. You felt it right away. And I didn't say we're going to go on and have the success that we did, but looking at Johnny, you're like, yeah, this guy is different than other players, and he's going to be a good one. Kaner looked like a little boy. I said when we drafted him first overall, he went from the draft stage to the interview, and he was so confident in his interview. I remember laughing, saying, look at this kid. He weighs 160 pounds. He's not playing in the NHL next year. And Kaner had the microphone in his hand. He says, I'm going to camp, and I'm going to play in the NHL next year. Sure enough, he wins Rookie of the Year. His first time on the ice at our practice rink, poor Brent Seabrook had him on a one-on-one, and Kaner went like through his legs, back through his stick, went in and scored with a backhand goal, and everybody's eyes kind of just went like, yikes. That's one of our best defending defensemen in Seabrook. Just got danced by this little boy with curly hair. So we knew we were in good hands with the future. But having said that, there was a lot that goes into it besides Kane and Toews. But they were our superstars. They were the bar. Everybody has to keep up to them. And it was an awesome whirlwind ride there for a little while.
Well, yeah, I've never heard Johnny Toews you just hit that nail squarely on the enlightened. Because I tell you, it's the 2013 Cup, okay? One of my brothers had followed a girl to Venezuela as a documentary filmmaker. Leaving to go to my dad's 80th birthday, he gets arrested and accused of espionage, okay? Yeah, and it was a national story, all right? And, right up to the president, we were able to get him out. It's like an Argo-type tale. So
wow.
You guys came with the Hawks like the following October. After the morning skate, you've just won the Cup. And the enlightened one, JT, we're going to have to send him this clip. The first thing he said to me is, Tripp, I read the story about your brother. Wow. And he started asking me a bunch of questions. I'm like, Johnny, I had no idea you knew that. I mean, he really enlightened. I'm going to carry that with me, Sharpie.
He is, and he keeps evolving. He keeps changing. When I first met him back then, that name Captain Serious that Brent Seabrook gave him, it was well-deserved. This was a guy that would be in bed. He was roommates with Seabrook at home in Chicago that first year. He'd be in bed at 9:00. He'd be up at certain times eating. He was just so disciplined. This is a kid that went to Shattuck St. Mary High School. He went to North Dakota, which is well-respected kind of hockey factory, especially at the time that Toews was going there. Great star players were getting cranked out of North Dakota. This guy was just on a mission to get the best out of himself. And he was such a leader by example early on, just doing things his own way. He wasn't afraid to, just because these veteran guys have been doing it a certain way in the NHL, the old boys club or whatever you want to call it. He's not afraid to do something different. And because he believes in his ability and his strength and his practices. And now you talk to him and it's not even about hockey anymore. It's about life. It's about being relaxed. It's something else he's into. So he's in really good shape now. His nutrition and his diet has dialed in to as good as I've seen. There's a couple of guys in Chicago that treat their bodies real well. And Toews is he's always in great shape, feeling good. So, it's amazing to see the career that both Patrick and Jonathan have had to this point, and they still got a lot of years left to play, I think.
I tell you, I was in Sedona a couple summers ago and just having dinner, and got to know the waitress, and she said, "Yeah, Johnny Toews was here, and he's the enlightened one."
The enlightened one, I like that. That's a good name for him.
He was going to bed at 9:00. That's usually right around the time I'm throwing out the vibe at Tavern on Rush. That's another story. Well, if you could pick one moment, Sharpie, in any of those 3 Stanley Cups, whether it's on the bus, in the room, in the hotel, on the bench, even on the ice. Signature Jonathan Toews leadership moment, maybe a little tale that epitomizes it. What would it be?
Yeah, I was doing some interviews with the return to play here, and I was getting some questions about those old Hawks days, and it made me think, like, there's a lot of big moments. There's one that wasn't even in a cup year that is just typical Toews. 2011 first round playoffs, our third year in a row playing Vancouver. We're down 3-0 in the series. We come back to tie the series. Now it's 1-0, game 7, all game long. Final minute of play in the third period, we're shorthanded. So game's over, series is over, we're done. Toews makes this incredible individual effort. He's got 0 goals on the series. He's on his belly. 2 guys are on top of him. He scores the goal in the final minute to tie it, to send it to overtime. Like, the Hawks just won't go away. You can't kill the Hawks. And it was Toews with the big moment. Then I turn on the World Cup of Hockey, and it's Team Canada against whatever the team name was. So it was a Team Europe in the final, whoever it was in the final. Tie game, final minute, and it's a shorthanded situation. Brad Marchand's on the ice with Jonathan Toews. Toews makes the play, sets up Marchand for the winner. It's like comical that you text with your buddies, oh, here comes another big moment, another big opportunity for someone to step up. And then it's Johnny every time. You know, the shootout situation in the World Juniors. There's so many times Toews has had just an okay game, you know, played hard, but nothing, didn't really do anything. And then the Hawks go into a shootout. He's the first guy that shoots, and he comes down and he puts a move on the goaltender and scores. And no one's ever seen that move before. Not in practice, not in pregame skate. He just does something. You're like, what's going on here? So that goal against Vancouver, we ended up losing the series anyway. But in the moment, you just thought, like, yeah, of course Johnny scored on his belly, his first goal of the series, to tie it, to send it to overtime on the road. Like, it was just textbook Toews. Kane's not too shabby either. He's got some pretty good moments over the years as well.
Well, the enlightened one, that's going to stick. And I want to getting back to, you know, when Patrick grabs the microphone, I'm coming to camp, I'm going to make the team, and what you've said about your mom, just simply believe. Have you ever had a conversation with him about your mom's influence on you? And what do you think makes him, granted, I know he has the world-class skill set, what do you think makes Patrick Kane believe?
He's got a great support system around him. His father is at the game. He's seen every game he's ever played. He, you know, drives into practice still to this day. They have a great relationship as far as father-son, hockey coach, player type deal. It's really cool to see from afar, you know, and I wondered, quite honestly, how that was going to play out throughout Kaner's career. Like, as an 18-year-old kid, yeah, you better believe there's going to be family around the rink, and they're going to be paying attention and making sure everything is going well. But Kaner's in his 30s now. He's been doing this a long time, and the family still supports him. He's got 3 great sisters. He's been told he's a great player his entire life. He knows he's a great player his entire life. He loves the game of hockey. This is a guy that, I mean, we talk about reputations, Toews being Mr. Serious, Kane being the fancy one that does the big celebrations, that's always goofing off. I think the truth is somewhere in between. Kane doesn't get enough appreciation for how much he cares about the game of hockey. And it's bigger than just, you know, being a good player at this point. He's on pace to be the best American-born hockey player of all time. This is a guy that's going to the Hall of Fame if he retires tomorrow. He plans on playing a long time, and he keeps getting better even at the age that he's at. I mean, one of the cool things about this shutdown was we got to watch the old 2010, 13, and 15 games on repeat in Chicago. They were looking for airtime, so they put those games on. Kane was our best offensive player back then, him and Toews, and we won the Stanley Cup. But you watch a Hawks game now, Kane has way more influence on the game today than he did back then, and he was the best offensive player on the ice back then. He has the puck so much more. He's developed these routes that he skates. He's great on the power play. He's always thinking of ways to score. Whoever's struggling in the lineup offensively, when they go on Kane's line, guess what? They start scoring goals. It's been fun to watch his development. I know he has this real strong belief in himself. You know, I could talk about Kane all day long. You see some great versions of Patrick Kane, right? Playoff mode Kaner, that's cool. He's got the mullet. He's chewing on the mouth guard. He's doing the big celebration. He wants the puck in those big situations. But the best version of Kane is like, Hawks are losing. Doesn't matter what kind of game it is. Hawks are losing. 10 minutes left in the third period. Kane's already got a goal and assist in the game, so he's feeling pretty good. And now coach is starting to get him out there every other shift, and he wants that puck. It's like a basketball, like a point guard. He wants the puck. Give me the puck, get open. and he starts talking to himself on the bench, and you hear that self-talk, and you just look at him. That's when he's at his best, when he wants to be the show. Showtime's not just a catchphrase. That's like the real deal. He's Showtime, man. The bigger the stage, he's going to step up. And it's easy to say that when you win and you've done it, but I've seen it so many times over the years. Like, let me guess what's going to happen here. Kane's going to go out there and have an impact on the game-winning goal, and then sure enough, it happens. So that's enough of Kane. I've been talking about him long enough.
Yeah, well, Sharpie, they said, you just said that they said you were sure of yourself in Vermont. My man, all you're doing is talking. I have bias. No, I don't have bias. We've become great friends over the years, but you were centerpiece and clutch. No. Bigger the moment. There's my man Sharpie. But for any sport, boy or girl, because nothing was ever given to you. So if there's a chip on a shoulder for any athlete that can be a positive thing, not a detriment, how would Patrick Sharp say this is how you beneficially utilize a chip on your shoulder?
Yeah, that's a good question. And that's something that I'm learning now that I'm not playing. Because for me in my career, I cared too much at times. I'd overthink things. I'd get angry. I'd take the game home with me. If it was a good game, maybe that's why I was kind of high and low at times. When things were going well, everything was great, and I had all those good feelings. When things started to go sideways, all of a sudden maybe you start thinking too much and you can't relax out there and you start trying a little bit too much. That chip on your shoulder, for me to be a good player, Tripp, I had to get angry. I had to dislike the people I was playing against. It's funny now that I haven't played in a while. I'll be driving in my car, listening to some music, and then this moment will pop into my mind of when I got into it with somebody on the other team and I maybe said something that was a little bit over the line, or I really said something that would hurt their feelings. And it's a cringe moment for me. But when I was my best as an individual, that's kind of how I had to be. I had to just find a way to find that anger and harness it towards being a good player. Probably not the most fun guy to be around on a daily basis. My roommate in college once told somebody when he did an interview that being roommates with Sharp is like living with 7 different people. You never know which guy you're going to get. And that's, I think, the chip on your shoulder, the always being overlooked type attitude. Yeah, it only goes so far. If you truly believe it and you use that anger or whatever motivation you can find, you got to find it, because these guys are playing a lot of hockey, 82 games, playoffs. I mean, you got to find a way to get motivated all the time. I was never a player that could just go out there and be nice. I was always had to get into a scrum or say something stupid or got those juices going. That's when I was at my best. So hopefully a lot of those guys that I got into it with over the years are watching the podcast or listening to it, and they'll know that it was just in the moment. It was nothing personal. And I wish I probably didn't say or do a few things on the ice that were dumb.
Sharpie's 7 Dwarfs. Who was the best chirper that you played with, throughout your career?
Ben Eager, by far, hands down. Guy was hilarious. Adam Burish was pretty good. Yeah. He could carry it over into the media side of things as well. He could spin some things pretty funny. Those early playoff series that we had as a group in Chicago 2009, before we won the Stanley Cup, we played Calgary, we played Vancouver in that first year, won both those series. And those were as ruthless as I can remember. Both teams, a lot of chirping back and forth, a lot of intimidation tactics going back and forth. Our team held our own, and Ben Eager was leading the way with some pretty funny chirps.
Congratulations to your dear friend, Adam Burish. He just became a dad. He married a dear friend of mine, formerly Jackie Demora, now Jackie Burish. She's a great girl.
Right. Yeah, great couple there, and congratulations to Burr. It's nice to reconnect with Burr now that we're both done playing. We do some work in Chicago together, and he's a great guy.
Okay, so I can still remember this really well. It was at the Wynn in Vegas. Ladder gets married, was the MC of the wedding, and I'm watching all of the cast of Hawks characters. Some guys I already, I didn't know some of the guys. And I'm Westerners have always been solid. This Brent Seabrook, this guy is salt of the earth. This is a quality guy. And so I want to get your perspective. The rare time that maybe Johnny Taves lost his marbles, what you remember about the moment seeing Brent Seabrook go into the penalty box at Joe Louis Arena en route to winning one of your Stanley Cups.
Yeah, in hindsight, that turns out to be a huge pivotal moment of that season and really of that group that was together for so many years. Seabs didn't wear a letter. believe it or not, on those championship teams. But if you ask everybody in that locker room, who's one of the greatest leaders in this room right now, Brent Seabrook's, right up there with Jonathan Taves. He commands the locker room. He's a great guy. We say all these nice things about Eric Stahl and the Stahl family. How about Brent Seabrook? I mean, one of the best teammates I've ever had. Tough to find a guy that comes close to him. And he was a pretty good player in his day too, wasn't he? Him and Dunks were arguably the best shutdown all-around defenseman pair for a long time. They made Team Canada together in 2010 as a D pair. So we had a pretty good group there on the back end. But Siebes, he's it's fun to see him now. He's got the big beard growing out. He's training really hard. He's recovering from some surgeries. He looked pretty good in the training camp. I'm looking forward to seeing him get back on the ice, because that's another guy that, man, you count up the games played, all the big moments, Stanley Cup championships, gold medals. I mean, the guy's done it all, and he still keeps coming back for more. So Siebes is the man for sure.
Did you guys ever talk privately as a team and say, Siebes, what made you go in there into the box? I mean, that's not something you see every day.
No, we were trying to get our heads wrapped around with what was going on. We were getting beat up pretty good by the Red Wings. I mean, there's a history there with the Wings. They had those Hall of Famers on the team throughout the 2000s, and we were just that lowly Blackhawks team. We'd lose every game 6-2, and then they would be winning Stanley Cups or going to the finals. And once we started getting better, we would win some playoff rounds and have some success, but we never beat the Red Wings. That was like the thing. And that series, we won game 1, lost the next 3. Taser wasn't playing very good. He takes 3 penalties in a row, which can happen. I took 2 in a row in the Stanley Cup Finals one time. I just about quit hockey. Taser took a 3rd one, and you could just see the stress and anxiety on his face. And Mr. Biscuit, Siebes goes right across the box, puts his hand on his head. And I don't know what he said word for word, but it was something along the line. I'll take it easy. We need you. Everything will be fine. We'll have to get Siebes on the show and find out exactly what he did say. But sure enough, Taser scores the next game at home, and we come back to win that series. So, yeah, Siebes is a great leader. When you look at all the success that Blackhawks organization has had over the years, Siebes is a name that should get mentioned right up there with Kane and Taves and Keith and all those other guys as well.
And Sharp. And I wanted before we get to the Olympics, because of course you mentioned that Seabrook and Keith a pairing in one of the Olympic golds. What makes Joel Quenneville on the Mount Rushmore of the greatest coaches of all time?
As he's a fun guy to be around. He's like hilarious to watch operate. Guy competes at everything, just competes and wants that competition, lives for it. He's intense all the time. I mean, he knows when to put his foot down a little bit and be stern. He knows when to let us get away with some stuff, but you definitely feel that intensity behind the bench, and it makes you want to play that much harder. The hooting and hollering after the goals. He's like an easy guy to like, easy guy to play for. And he was definitely the right guy to be behind the bench of all those great teams. I mean, manages a season like beautifully. There could be somebody not playing very good. Maybe he's late for practice. Maybe he misses a meeting where that's a big deal in some cities. And then you got to deal with it in the papers and all that stuff. Or where we're just like, hey, on to the next one. Let's focus on what's important here. We got a game. So what, Duncan, you're late for the 10th time this week to a meeting. You know what? We're not going to make a big deal out of it. We're just going to brush this under the rug and we're going to play hockey. That's managing a season. If you ask me, like, yeah, you want to be on time, of course, but Duncan is special, as we mentioned already. So he'd be late all the time. Didn't really matter. Joel is a coach that when he let that kind of stuff slide, it wasn't like the kids, we would be bad kids and get away with more stuff. No, it's like, okay, he's like treating us like adults here. It happens. Everybody misses the alarm once in a while. Let's move on and focus on what's important. So Q is awesome. Great coach to play for and a great man off the ice as well.
Sharpie, how the heck did Duncan Keith not get a deal with a cereal deal with Special K? Perfect.
Exactly. Well, I thought you were going to say, how did he make it to the games? That he would have missed a few games too if it wasn't for Seabrook picking him up and driving him to the rink, telling him who we're playing that night.
Oh, the old Duke. Hey, listen, if there are any hockey coaches at any level, and we hope they are, digging in. I know Ladder said to me on several occasions, Tripp, Q is an outstanding practice coach. A, do you agree? And if so, what made him and makes him now in Florida an elite practice coach?
Because he wants pace. You never hear guys around the league, whether it's me on TV or you yourself or other media guys with a microphone, they say the word pace. It's come into the league now. Coaches say it all the time. That was Q's thing. I think he brought that word to the NHL. Let's play with some pace. Practice was all about pace. We would mess around and go to the board all the time. We would stretch at center ice. We would just mosey through practice. And the day that Q came here, came to Chicago, it was just like full bore, simple drills. We know we're going to keep the practices simple and predictable, but I want to see high pace. I want to see crisp passes. And he'd let you know every day if you wanted your feet moving more or if you wanted you to pass the puck harder. Didn't matter if it was Seabrook or Keith. He'd yell hard, right? That deep Joel Quenneville voice. He wants the puck hard. Every practice, he would be like that, barking in practice. His assistant coach, Mike Kitchen, always barking at you to move your feet. It's annoying. You get sick of it after a while. But when it's all said and done and you're a pretty good team, you appreciate what those guys are barking at. And they wanted you to play at a high pace in practice so that when the game starts, skating's easy for you and you're able to make those plays quickly.
Sharpie, baby, I like when the Canes won the Cup in Game 7 against Edmonton 2006, I was fortunate enough that I was in the room, and that was something I'll never forget. Some of the toast, because the Canes had a bunch of guys that had played long careers. And Glenn Wesley, most playoff games without winning. And some of the speeches were unbelievable after they really tossed everybody out except the team. But you won 2 of your 3 Cups on the road in Philly and Boston. Paint a picture for me what it's like to travel with the Stanley Cup airborne on the bird. I mean, that's got to be something.
It's the best. Honestly, Tripp, coming home from Philly and then Boston 3 years later, those, when it's all said and done now, I mean, these guys are still in the fight. A lot of them still playing, but I can look back. Those were the coolest moments. We got the Conn Smythe somewhere on the plane. Taser won it in 2010, Kaner in 13. We got the big Stanley Cup, and it's like a relaxed environment because we had just been partying for the last 2 or 3 hours in the visiting locker room with our families, with our buddies, with our coaching staff, with our trainers. And now we're on the flight and it's just a travel party. And we got the hardware and it's like, oh, we can take a deep breath and relax. We did it. Those are the best moments. That's where the best pictures are. I still remember Andrew Shaw coming home from Boston. The guy was bleeding for like 2 days straight. He got a puck in the face in the clinching game. He hoisted the cup, blood pouring down. We're spraying champagne, blood pouring down. See him on the flight home, blood pouring down his face. It was hilarious to see. But I think you're onto something there. Those moments on the plane, on the bus, where it's just the guys that have done it, just the training staff, just the coaches, the video guy. You've done it. It's a long ride. 82 games, a lot of playoffs. And now you have that moment to be like, all right, guys, when we land on this plane, life might be different for a while. Fans are going to be involved. We're going to be bouncing around the city. This might be our last time as a group to really soak this all in. So winning on home ice was cool too, but those moments on the road are pretty special for the locker room.
I've always wanted to be a scene airborne with the Cup and Conn Smythe on board. Okay, so Sochi, just to add another layer, partner, you go over and you win the gold medal. Any particular stories, about that team that jump out to you, or even, spending time in the Olympic Games?
Yeah, it was very cool experience, to be quite honest with you. I had not played for Team Canada at all growing up, was never on the radar for World Junior Championships. I played 2 Worlds as a pro. Hawks missed the playoffs. I went over. Actually, it was to Halifax in Quebec City in Canada one year, and then Helsinki, Finland another. So I had played briefly with Hockey Canada, but to say I made the Olympic team for Hockey Canada is very special and a cool individual accomplishment for me. My experience at the tournament was awesome. I was roommates with Johnny, the enlightened one, and he was one of the captains of the team. So we had a cool dorm room at the Olympic Village. Across the hall was another nice room set up that was for the other captains, Shea Weber and Sidney Crosby. And some of the best memories I have were late at night, sitting in the little dorm room, Jonathan Taves, Shea Weber, Sidney Crosby, and we're just kicking around stories. There'd be other guys around too, but the guys that you're talking about are like world-class players. It's just like there were so many talented players on there. It was nice to see how they all operated in their own way. And Patrice Bergeron comes to mind, very quiet, focused, detailed, prepare the same way for the gold medal game as he did against Norway in the preliminary rounds. You got Drew Doughty, who was like never had a bad day in his life, always laughing, smiling, eating McDonald's every night before games at the Olympic Village cafeteria. Carey Price was awesome. Luongo was having a good time. I mean, I could go on about that team, just the fact that I was there with them. I have to shake my head sometimes because life was moving pretty fast at that point. In 2014, we were in the middle of a lot in Chicago, playoff games, winter classics, the Olympics. 12 of us went and played off the team. So life was busy, but it was a fun moment in my life, and it was a cool experience.
Oh, Mel, do you know when, I don't know if you know this story, when Roddy Brindamore dug in, about a month ago, because he lived in Nagano. He lived with Marty Brodeur, Wayne Gretzky, and Steve Yzerman. So Roddy tells a story. He's getting ready. You know, they lose the semifinals. Okay, they lose to the Czechs in the shootout. Okay, and Gretzky doesn't go in the shootout.
Yep.
So, but it's a quick turnaround, Sharpie. They're playing for the bronze. You know, like at noon the next day, and Rod's getting ready. He's sleeping, and all of a sudden he hears a big noise. You know, at 1 o'clock in the morning, whatever. He told the story. It was Wayne. Wayne had like a case of beer. And all of a sudden, everybody's in the common room, and they're all there. And Wayne looks at one person and goes, "How many goals have I scored in this league? How many points? How can he not, Mark Crawford, use me in the effing shootout?" So,
oh boy!
But the way that Rod told the story, it was so flattering to the great one, because he said Wayne cared so much about making Canada proud. It wasn't that he was disappointed for him. He wanted to win so badly for Canada. And
well, Wayne made up for it in 2002, did he not? As the the centerpiece of that team. I still get pumped watching highlights of like a big tournament. Joe Sakic scored those goals in the final, and Wayne standing up and just giving a huge celebration as like the general manager of the team. That when Wayne Gretzky's acting like that in the stands, that can't help but fire up a country. So that was one of the highlights of my career, was watching that game in Vermont. We had all the Americans in one condo, all the Canadians in the other. 2002, Salt Lake City. It was like, I've never screamed so loud at a TV screen in my life. It was awesome.
And not knowing at the time that you would go for Team Canada and win Olympic gold in Sochi. I mean, this is storybook, Sharpie. Okay, my man. So you finish off your career. At what point did you say, you know what, I might have an interest in trying my hand at broadcasting?
I got lucky playing for the Hawks. We were in the national media a lot. I mentioned the outdoor games. All those playoff games are on TV every other night. So there was a lot of practice, I guess I would say. We host a Blackhawks convention every July in the city of Chicago, where there's microphones, and the players on the team are kind of forced to come out of their shell a little bit and not give the traditional hockey answers. So maybe I've had a lot of practice with it over the years. I always thought that it could be an option if I really, dug in and developed that skill. Every year, the NBC crew brings in a former player or a current player to kind of weigh in a little bit. Sometimes you see a coach do it. And I got the opportunity right after our season finished a couple of years ago. And I don't know, I've never been more nervous. I think I mentioned that already today, walking down the hallway. I don't know what it was, the lights or the makeup or the whole production meeting. We're going to talk about this type of stuff. I don't know. I was really nervous, much more nervous than I was before digging in with you, Tripper. And I enjoyed it. I felt like the adrenaline I would get when the guy in the air says, "All right, we're on in 10, 9. Oh, okay, I'm getting nervous here. Now I got the lump in my throat." That's like as close as I could get to a national anthem at the United Center or a big playoff game. I mean, it's nerve-wracking. It's still nervous to go on TV and talk. I've screwed up many times and heard about it from my friends, and it gives me a big kick every time. But it's been more fun over the years. I kind of eased into it. I'm more comfortable commenting on what I see. It's tough when you play against these guys or with them, and then you're on TV and you're supposed to comment like you're an expert, like you know it all. I don't want to sound like a know-it-all, and that's what I've been guarding against. But NBC crew is nice. Eddie Olczyk's been a big mentor of mine over the years. He joined the Hawks broadcast team back in 2006 or 7. Troy Murray's another one that I'm sure you know well, does an excellent job doing color for our radio team in Chicago. I've talked a lot about them. And two things about those guys, and I could throw you in that as well, Tripper, is like, you guys are always happy. You love the game. You love being around the game. You love talking hockey. You know as many people in the league as anybody. You're telling stories about the greatest players in the league, role players. You know everybody. It's a great life being involved in hockey. It's fun to sit here and tell stories about, digging in and playing big games and our experiences. I always thought that would be a cool way to kind of ride off into the sunset. Well, you can't play forever. I wish I could still play, but I think this next best thing is either building a team, coaching a team, or sitting around talking about hockey. So it's worked out well, and I'm happy that I get to do it.
Well, I love picking your brain because it makes me better at my job. But I want to get your take on this because you made me think of when I first got going in the late 90s, no salary cap, and the Rangers stunk. Highest payroll in the league. John Davidson was doing color with Sammy Rosen, and JD, who was a mentor of mine, along with Harry Neal, Mickey Redmond in Detroit. But JD said to me, mind you, ridiculously high payroll, awful team. And he said, Tripp, you have to find a way with your preparation and approach to satisfy the fan who wants the truth, somehow not throwing the player or the team under the bus, and simultaneously selling the game, the greatest game on the planet. I thought that was remarkably great advice from John Davidson, now the president of the Rangers. What's your take on that now that you're in the position and you will be throughout these playoffs?
Yeah, I like listening to that a lot. I listen to guys on TV that I respect, and I kind of want to take things from their game. I did it as a player. I grew up watching Mike Modano, so sometimes I'd go on the ice as a 12-year-old and say, I'm going to skate like Modano today. Or the next day, maybe it's Pavel Bure. I'm going to get a little choppier stride and more explosive skating style like Pavel Bure. I kind of find myself doing that in the new job I'm in with television. I find myself talking like Keith Jones sometimes, saying phrases that Keith will use. I watch the Hurricanes broadcast because I love listening to Johnny and yourself call a game. I think you guys do a great job. I love hearing Pat and Edzo do a Hawks game. I mean, there's certain broadcasting teams around the league that put on a great show. The Colorado group, intermission group, the broadcast team at the desk with Rycroft. Man, Rycroft makes me laugh every time he opens his mouth. I could watch that guy on TV all day long. John Michael Lyles has been great. They do great stuff over there. There's lots of great people on TV in our sport. So I kind of like to tune in, hear what they're saying, male or female. There's a lot of great ones. Listening to Kaylee Chelios of the Tampa Bay Lightning on the radio yesterday. She's really developed into a nice broadcaster as well down there in Florida. So, I mean, I copy everybody. I have my own thoughts on the game, but presentation and delivery and all that stuff, it's a whole new ball game. And it's something I never thought I'd have to think about, but I'm enjoying it all the same.
I believe congratulations to Kaylee Chelios, who was very talented. She just became a mom, I believe.
Right. Yeah, she did. That's right.
Yeah. So congratulations to her. I mean, boy, Chris must be proud because she's flat out good as an analyst. Okay, partner. The qualification round, I'm going to ask you about two series. And then your big takeaway as we're in the midst of it right now. How do you see as it unfolds the Rangers and the Carolina Hurricanes and what the difference will be?
I like Carolina a lot, not just because I'm talking to you and I see the red wall behind you and I know who you're working with, but they're a team. I want to go back to that Toronto game with the Zamboni driver. A lot's been made of the goaltender making saves, and it's a cool story, but watch how the Canes compete in that game. Once the goaltenders leave the game, it was a clinic on defensive hockey. It was a clinic on being competitive. Like, they knew they had a Zamboni guy between the pipes, and they had to compete against this Toronto team. Toronto takes a bunch of heat for not scoring goals, but what we really should have been talking about was how well Carolina played. I started to watch the team after that game a little bit more. Of course, beating Washington in last year's playoffs got my attention. And I noticed it's a fast team. It's a straight line team. Dougie Hamilton, we'll get into him in a second, was playing great hockey at the time. I thought that they're a team that could really go deep. I've since learned that Dougie's not going to play against the Rangers, and that can change things. But Carolina, I think, whether it's Rod or just the leadership in the locker room, look like a tough matchup in a playoff series for me. Like a pain in the butt, a team that you're not going to have a lot of time if you're Panarin making plays. I feel like Carolina's going to be on them right away. That's not a great matchup for the Rangers. I just saw them play the Islanders in an exhibition match. I know we're just getting into the swing of things, but Barry Trotz had those Islanders dialed in defensively above the puck, take away time and space. Wasn't the most exciting exhibition game, but I think that's the way you got to play the Rangers, and the Canes can do that. So, I mean, you're closer to it than I am. I didn't really like the Canes exhibition game, but again, listen to me. I'm critiquing an exhibition game. There was plenty of times where Kaner looked brutal in the preseason. They'd have 5 points in game 1 to start the season. So we'll see how it all plays out. I do like the Rangers team. I think that they're a team we're going to be talking about a lot on NBC over the next 3 to 5 years. They got some real nice pieces there. But as far as this actual series, I'll give you my answer. If it was a typical playoff series and there was no pause and everyone's healthy, I like the makeup of the Carolina Hurricanes. I think they can win playoff rounds. I don't know how this pause is going to affect the team. It'll be interesting to watch and see how it all folds out.
Well said. How about your former Hawks against, two elite through the stratosphere players in McDavid and Draisaitl?
Yeah, tough matchup for the Hawks in the sense that Hawks can play. They got some guys that can score. They've got world-class talent. They make plays. When they have the puck, they're a good team. That's been a trademark of the Blackhawks since 2009. They don't chip it into the corner and get a hit on the defenseman. They make plays. They hang on to the puck. They regroup during line changes. That's been a staple of Blackhawk hockey. I don't know how much they're going to have the puck against the Oilers. You know what I mean? And that's a problem for the Hawks, getting it back, playing defensively. We've seen all season long they give up a lot of chances in prime scoring areas. McDavid, I don't know, how you're supposed to stop him. I don't have an answer for you. Draisaitl's not too shabby. He's going to win the MVP this year, probably. They got speed all across the board at Edmonton. Their power play is real dangerous. Again, I like the offensive side and the puck moving ability of the Hawks, but if they don't have the puck, which I anticipate is going to be happening a lot in this series, it may be a problem. So again, I am anticipating 6-4, 5-4 scores in that series. And that's the one I'll be watching for sure, because there'll be a lot of highlights in that one.
A follow-up, because you mentioned Antti Niemi, who you won your first cup with. You win your other 2 with Corey Crawford. Okay. He has been a key cog in the wheel. I'm a big fan of Crawford. I like this guy. Yeah. Tell me about Corey Crawford and why, he's been able to get it done. 2 cups.
He's pretty level-headed, to be quite honest with you. You don't see him get overly excited after a shutout win. You don't see him get too fired up if he loses 5-2. He's pretty cool either way. He seems to let bad games slide off his back no problem. I feel for Crow these last few years because he's been handling some tough saves, backdoor tap-ins, 2-on-1s, breakaways, the scoring chances the Hawks have given up in the recent years. And we can talk to our boy Cammy Ward, who must not be too far away from the phone for you either. He had some tough saves to make also his last year playing with the Hawks. The trademark of those teams was hang on to the puck so the other team doesn't have it, and let's limit the shots from the dangerous areas. Crow's the type of guy that's not going to complain. Didn't play a whole lot during this new training camp. Just joined the team, played half the game against St. Louis yesterday and looked like he's ready for playoff hockey. That's Corey Crawford in a nutshell. Put him in the box with a Marian Hossa where, is Hossa and Crawford going to play? We haven't seen him in a while. And then put their gear on. They're ready to go. They're professionals. Crow's going to play a few more years, I think. He looks good to me. It's just that Hawks defense needs to help him out a little bit more. Team defense. I don't mean those 6 guys playing D. I mean the Hawks team defense.
Yeah. Okay, so a coach told me a couple of days ago, it hasn't been talked about a lot. Your 3 cups, you're in the West. And all of the travel that you have in the West, you had some of your series against LA, Anaheim, you mentioned San Jose earlier in our episode. By the time you get to the finals, you've traveled so much more than the team that comes out of the East. And now that's not going to be the case with the bubble in Edmonton. Is that a factor and therefore an advantage for whichever team comes out of the West, Sharpie?
Yeah, it is. But the twist to that one is these guys are going to be in a bubble for a long time. A lot of these guys will be home before you even know it. Series will be over and your team's done. Let's go back home. But for the teams that go to the conference finals and the finals, they're going to be in these bubbles for a long time. And I'm curious to see how that plays out. I'm curious to see how Patrick Kane plays without the energy in the building, good or bad. If they're booing him, he plays better. If they're cheering for him in the United Center, he wants the puck even more. Now they're going to have to manufacture that energy. Nashville's a team that, man, do they not ride the wave of that Bridgestone Arena? It seems like they're skating downhill sometimes. They're flying all over the place. Crowds going nuts. It's definitely an element to think about here. Now, I talked to some of the guys. I heard the Blues players talk about how challenging the new setup is. No fans, it's going to be a little bit weird. And I appreciate the honesty. At the same time, I want to say to those guys, like, what an opportunity you have right now. I know it's weird. You're playing in a bubble. There's no people in the stands. You don't have the music pounding and the fans banging on the glass. It's a little weird, but everybody's watching, right? Anyone that cares about hockey is tuning in and watching. The stage has never been bigger. So I think it could be weird here early on. I don't know what to anticipate, but as we get going here, we're going to start telling the story of the guys that are really playing well, the teams that are coming together. And you hear this asterisk talk, like, forget the asterisk. This Stanley Cup championship could be the best of all time. I mean, think of the team that wins this, right? Everyone that wins the cup says, oh, we were like a band of brothers. We care about each other. Well, how about the team that spends 2.5 months in a bubble, comes together and wins the Stanley Cup? Doesn't always have to be the best team on the ice. It could be a team that really wants to win more than anyone else. And that could be anybody, really. Who knows what's going to happen?
Wow, is that well said, partner? Really, what would you say so far in the studio is the most exciting part of being a broadcaster and the most challenging part of being a broadcaster?
Yeah. TV schedule is kind of weird sometimes. You can lay it out, but then all of a sudden there's an overtime. Maybe there's a broken pane of glass. And now there's like that 7-minute window where, hey, we don't have anything to talk about. We just got to fill some time. And Catherine or Liam or Mike Tirico tee you up with a question. It's like you got someone in your ear saying, all right, you got a minute and a half. And you're thinking to yourself, how the hell am I going to talk for a minute and a half about nothing? And you find a way to get it done. That's kind of fun. It gets the juices flowing a little bit. I like making fun of Brian Boucher. That seems to make me happy whenever I take a shot at Bouch. I chuckle about that. Keith Jones has been an awesome guy in the studio. But yeah, those moments where it's like, all right, forget everything we just planned. We're doing it this way now. That's what is exciting about television for me.
Jones, the underrated sense of humor. We're talking 3 former Flyers and Bouch. I remember when Bouch was a Hurricane, and I could tell he was going to be an outstanding broadcaster. And he does have a dry sense of humor, old Bouch.
Yeah, he's a funny guy for sure. I like hanging with Bouch.
Is there, before I let you go, it's so tough with the parity and the unique nature of the bubble. Is there one team that you think is built, and when you think it's going to require heaviness in both the East and the West, that you have a particular eye on?
Yeah, Vegas. Vegas comes off the page at me every single time. Colorado's another team in the West. I think there's going to be an advantage. Again, I don't know. I'm just saying I think to the top 4 teams in both the East and the West that they don't have to crank it up right away and win 5 rounds to hoist the cup. It's just 4. They get to kind of ease into this thing a little bit more. But Vegas has 2 starting goalies. I mean, I don't know who they're going to start. Probably Fleury because he's been there the longest. But Robin Lehner, I know we're going back to the Hawk connection here, but I just watched Robin Lehner play for the Hawks, and he might have been the best goalie in the league this year. The quality of chances that he was facing, I can't think of too many bad games that Robin Lehner had this year. What a luxury it is to have 2 starting goalies in a tournament like this. There's back-to-back games, potentially in some of these playoff series. It's different. It's a different tournament. Health is an issue. Being fit to play is an issue. So those deep teams that have all those elements of like Vegas can grind it down. So can Colorado. But then you also got McKinnon. You got Riley Smith-Lyon. Marcia Show is a lethal scorer. Like you got weapons across those 2 teams. So those are the guys that I'm thinking out of the West. And then Tampa Bay sure looks pretty good to me. They got that fast group up there. But more than anything, they got a chip on their shoulder from what happened last year. And then, yeah, they can answer the question however they want, but they've been dealing with that sweep from Columbus for a full year now, maybe more. And they're going to be in a situation where it's time to dig in, not to steal your catchphrase, but they're going to need to dig in this first round, whoever they play. And I think they're going to know the importance of it. And they know how easy it is to let a series slip away. So Tampa is going to be an issue for a lot of teams in the East.
I'm with you. One serious question and then one lighthearted before I let you go, partner. The serious question is, when you think about pressure, okay, and how you channel pressure, nerves, and I know you've spoken throughout, and I'm going to carry it with me about your mom at a young age telling you to believe. If you gave advice to anybody, because the moments come, do you grab the moment or let the moment grab you? What advice would you give to give yourself the best chance at grabbing the moment?
I got to be comfortable in those moments. Know that it's coming. All the best hockey. I mean, we're talking hockey, so all the biggest moments are going to have huge pressure to it. Like shootout is a perfect example of that. My generation, let's say 2005 to 2015, the shootout was a big deal because it just came into play. It developed, evolved a lot over the years, but you would see certain guys that, I don't know, maybe didn't want to shoot in the shootout. My approach was like, who cares? You're either going to score or not. Enjoy the moment. You know what I mean? Lots of guys missing the shootout. Don't put so much pressure on this pressure moment. Just go out there, enjoy it, and trust your ability and see what happens. So I learned to kind of enjoy it over the years. Now, there was plenty of times where I didn't handle the pressure well and maybe brought it home with me or didn't have the best attitude at the rink, didn't respond well. To me, that's what separates the great regular season player to the Patrick Kane. You know what I mean? Okay, anybody can have a nice season there and put up 90 points in the regular season and move it around on the power play. How are you going to do when, you're getting national media coverage? How are you going to do when everybody's watching and expecting you to score in these big moments? That's what the great ones do. That's why I keep mentioning the guys I play with in Chicago, because I've seen them step it up when it matters a lot of times. And that's what we're talking about here, these playoffs. That's what it's all about. You can have nice regular seasons, but moments are made in the playoffs in those pressure situations. So my answer would be, try to enjoy it as best you can. It's not the end of the world.
Okay, and the reason we've had this moment, digging in on this episode, Sharpie, I never told you this. So thanks to Eric Stahl for inviting me to his wedding, because that's how I meet you, and you had me at hello. But I didn't tell you, the wedding was at like 10 o'clock in the morning, and the reception doesn't start till 6. Okay, so you got to kill all that time. So I go back to the Valhalla, the famous hotel in Thunder Bay, and I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to kill the time. And I'm with two of your agents, okay? Ricardo Curran, okay? And Paul Jerry Maguire Krapelka. John Adams, great man, okay?
John Adams, yes.
Yeah, and Jimmy Rutherford, okay? So we're all sitting there at the lodge there at the Valhalla, and, we're starting to have a few drinks. Jimmy's ordering the nachos. And so it's like probably 12:30 at this point. So we're killing all this time. And slowly but surely, some of the Hurricanes players start rolling in. Cam Ward, Andrew Ladd, Eric Cole. They're all of age, and they're afraid to booze in front of the general manager. So they go roll around the corner. So, Jimmy knows it's not his first rodeo. He knows they're drinking, and he's all about it. So in comes Mike Commodore, okay? Commy, no fear. He sits down, orders, I think, 2 Coors Lights each and a round of Southern Comfort shots for all of us. And goes, hey, Jimmy. And Jimmy loved it. And so I'm there, and with Rick Curran, Paul Krapelka, 2 of your agents, and that's what happened in the hours before I got to meet you at the reception as we were, no pun intended, digging in.
That sounds like a Thunder Bay story right there. You got some time to kill. All right, let's order a few beers, sit down, and have a good time. That's Thunder Bay to a T. Great place to live.
Salt of the earth people, and you are certainly one of them. Sharpie, I'm so grateful to have your friendship, and thank you so much for digging in with me, partner.
Hey, buddy, I didn't know it was going to feel more like a therapy session for me, but I feel good getting all that off my chest. You got me to open up a little bit. Great talking to you. I always respected you in the game. Your work with the Hurricanes has been awesome to watch, and I'm glad I could sit down and dig in with you.
Well, Dr. P, to some it's Dr. Phil, but for me it's Dr. Patrick.
Perfect. All right, buddy. See ya.
See you, Sharpie. Thanks so much, Sharpie. That was enlightening. And you're making me believe. Boy, I learned a lot in that hour and change from Patrick Sharp. Boy, the work that he does for NBC now, I think, is stellar. We wouldn't have been able to have this fireside chat digging in with Sharpie had it not been for our tremendous sponsors. Boy, our title sponsor, Digging In, is presented by the New Country Auto Group. I mean, they are scattered up and down the East Coast from north to south, New York, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Florida, Ferrari, Maserati. When you're talking high-end Mercedes, I got my Mercedes down at their dealership in Palm Beach, Florida. They have you covered. Their customer service, all-inclusive, 12 on a 10 scale, which was really the way that Jared Cantanucci, the Nooch, one of the owners of New Country, boy, he delivered the goods at Shattuck St. Mary's. I mean, I'm still trying to figure out Hockey DB if these numbers are legit. Over 150 points one year for the Nooch. And he's taken that after Harvard to, I think, being the top automotive group in the United States. So Thank you to our very fine and loyal title sponsor, New Country Auto Group, www.newcountry.com. Right from the beginning, Allstate Fastener has been with us, allstatefastener.com, a leading fastener distributor scattered throughout the globe, unlimited product range. I mean, nuts and bolts may not be sexy, but everybody needs them and needs a lot of them, and they have you covered. allstatefastener.com. The Vintage Wine Company, woohoo! I'll tell you, if you have wholesale nectar of the gods needs in Michigan, anything, white, red, listen, whatever you happen to like when it comes to your particular grape. VWCMI for Michigan.com. Wholesale needs, the Vintage Wine Company, and Data 443 software. I mean, these guys are super. These guys are super, of course. It's well documented. I love the fact that they're big-time Caniacs. And for an old Westerner like me that needs all sorts of tech babysitting, they deliver it for me with their playbook, with all of their data. You can look at it right into my phone. It makes things simple stupid for a guy that needs that. Data443.com. So thank you so much. We encourage everybody to rate and give us feedback on our podcast platforms, YouTube platforms. Let us know where we're at, how we can be better. And trust me, we look at it, we learn from it. And until the next episode of Digging In, presented by New Country Auto Group, have a good week.
We're digging in with Tripp today, yeah. Today, yeah. Today, yeah. Today.